here with the Dad Man, we're talking Russian history. We're talking Napoleon. It's War and Peace, directed by Sergei Bondarchuk. This is a Leo Tolstoy
novel
that is highly acclaimed, and there's a lot of Russian literature that is highly acclaimed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a period of time, and there's periods of time where they're considered, their literature was among the best in the world.
Yeah, like Brothers Karamazov. I think it's pronounced that.
Yeah, I think that's how I say it. Yeah.
Crime and Punishment, and that's by the same. Both those are by the same guy whose name I can't remember.
Dostoevsky.
That's the name. I love trying to pronounce his name. And as I start, so the movie itself is 7 hours if you were to watch it in one sitting.
End to end. Yeah.
And luckily the director and whomever, made this was smart enough to realize, let's break it up into natural chunks. So they did 4 parts, with one being the longest, and that's, you get the decadence of Russian high society in the early 1800s.
Yeah.
And a early battle that kind of really solidifies the disenchantment and like the fear of war of one of the main characters. Then part 2 establishes this woman who is she has romantic interest in the prince, who was a soldier, and then later her relationship evolves with the a duke or a count, I guess.
Okay.
I think they're cousins or whatever. Part 3 is where the film, and part 1 is really fucking good, because we talked about this on last episode, that the film was state funded, so they just spent an insane amount of money on this.
Yeah.
There was tons of extras, so even like in dance halls where it's like the high society, they have people dancing, there's like hundreds of people in these extravagant dresses or suits, but the war is really where shit shines. In part 3 it's called The Year of 1812. We're not going to very much discuss that in this episode, so check out part 2. It's going to be coming out the same day that you're listening to this. But anywho, I want to talk to you about part 1. I know the romance isn't very much going to interest you, so we'll just stick to the battles, because I think you and I like battles.
Yeah.
In
film
history.
battles on film.
In terms of this director, I've now watched these 4 parts, Waterloo, which we're also going to do an episode on, and he does another movie about Russian soldiers during World War II, and I'll tell you what, state funding is a great idea when you're the director who gets the state funding.
Yeah, money's no object. So, however you want to tell it, just think about what would be the most interesting and extravagant way to do it, and you have the money to do it.
Yeah. And it's like, it would be like, when you were a kid and you played with toys.
Yeah.
It's just, hey man,
whatever toy you want.
How many people do you need?
Right.
How many horses do you need? And it comes off just so, it really does make you feel like I'm watching through the lens of somehow I got
history.
Yeah. Like I got to time travel back to when this happened, and I got to see it.
Well, so I've watched it. I may watch parts of it. The romance part, I literally have no interest in at all. I just don't care.
Yeah.
But in the first episode, so what battles? So is it? I don't necessarily need to name, but are they small skirmishes with France?
I mean,
I had read that the reason France...
It seems like a lot of people are dying, I'll just say that.
Well, their issue with Russia had to do with a blockade of England, because France and England had been enemies like forever, and I know one of the most famous battles of English naval war history is the Battle of Trafalgar, and that is when the British Navy defeated the French Navy to the point where Napoleon could never, invade England. Now, had he won it, but I think it was, they were just decimated. And France obviously was never known, well, not obviously, but they were never known for their navy.
And England was.
England was. I mean, that was how they could control at one time. The sun never sets on the English Empire because they had settlements, or whatever you want to call it, all over the world. As a small island nation, I mean, how does that happen? I mean, they didn't have superior numbers. What was their advantages that allowed them to do that? They built up a navy. Anybody could have built up a navy. Spain, Portugal. Spain did. The Spanish Armada.
And then that's why they are so prevalent in Latin America.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because their conquest and colonization of Central and South America. So, and then, England was doing the same thing. So they settled the United States, or, the colonies anyway.
They didn't understand that we're a Riley bunch.
Yeah. So,
the battles are Schöngrabern and Austerlitz.
I've heard of Austerlitz before.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's against Russia.
Yeah. So I
was against Austria.
I might have. Yeah, it was. One of the Russian lords. It was Pierre. No. It's not Pierre. It's Andrei. He's a prince, and he takes part of a failed campaign in Austria. I don't know if it was Russian or not. You guys are probably thinking I'm really stupid for not picking up on this.
I don't think Austerlitz was Russian. I mean, he fought all over Europe.
Would Russian forces fight in Austria to try to keep them from coming to Russian borders? That's the only confusion I have.
Maybe they might.
It's possible. I think it maybe. That's what I'm gonna guess now. But quite frankly, Dad man, you could just watch part 1, part 3, and part 4, and
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Just entirely skip the romance.
So it was France fought against the Austrian Empire and the Czech Republic, or a portion of it.
And that's in the Battle of Austerlitz?
Yeah.
Which I am nailing the pronunciation on that.
You know what? The French Empire... No, I'm sorry. Russia was involved as well. Russia was involved. So it was Austria and Russia.
Hell yeah.
But did you know where he was born?
See, I don't know. Napoleon?
Yeah.
Could you just tell me? I don't know.
It was Corsica. The island of Corsica. And Corsica kind of went from French and Italian control kind of back and forth. So essentially, by his descendants were Italian. It's just, and then Corsica was controlled by France when he.
And that's why he was so patriotic for the French.
I don't know if he was necessarily patriotic. I think he was just, ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah, that is certainly communicated quite well in Waterloo. He's more of a background figure for the entirety of War and Peace. Now he's shown, he might have some dialogue, but when you consider the fact that that's the major conflict,
adversary,
he does not talk a lot. In Waterloo he does, because Waterloo is, it's basically about Napoleon and his final hoorah. And we'll get into the details of that in our following episode, which will come out today. You got to check it out. You got to tantalize the people.
Sure, yeah. This is the appetizer.
Well, it's a pretty damn good appetizer, though. It's like the Texas Tunyon or the Cactus Blossom, if you guys are familiar with Texas Roadhouse or Longhorn Steakhouse.
Correct.
And if you don't eat steak, then,
you probably shouldn't be listening anyway.
Stay, but just know we're going to denigrate you over the course of these recordings.
Hopefully.
That's my goal.
Well, yeah, I guess mine too. If I can put anybody down, my God, it makes my day.
It's difficult for me, though, to talk about aspects of this film without comparing and contrasting from Waterloo. And these are the director's biggest projects. And I'm sure you probably have heard of them yourself. You're probably familiar with the films.
Me?
Are you?
Yeah.
You are? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I
figured.
I kind of... Yeah. War and Peace.
Maybe more so the book than the actual movie.
Well, I never read it. It's really, really long. It's a long...
I never read it either.
It's super long. It's a classic, not obviously, but it is a classic. But, I was, interesting time in history. A lot of people at one point looked at Napoleon as a type of, not a messiah savior, but a savior of Europe or France.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed, and everybody, even Thomas Jefferson had a relatively positive opinion of him, and then his opinion of him just, it's like he was considered a moral monster. He actually, stated that.
Well, I think as we get to part 2, and it's the Battle of Borodino and the ultimate retreat of the French, I can see why someone's opinion would turn on him. And it wasn't like he was like a Hitler type character, but he made a major blunder. What was, it's not even necessarily a blunder.
Yeah, it was. What? I know we'll talk about this, but it's insanity to invade Russia.
Yeah.
At that time, and even
if it
during...
wasn't for Napoleon, how would we understand that? Hitler has no defense for why he did it.
Well, I've heard conspiracy
theories that Hitler jumped the gun because there was secret plans that Russia was going to invade. That there was secret plans of them taking...
There may have been. If we don't know now, we'll never know, or it probably isn't true. And I've read about what Hitler did. The thing that really turned the tide against them. It was a bad idea to go there anyway because of the weather.
Germans.
Yeah, but they could have gone east and south to the oil fields.
Russia?
Yeah, or north towards, at that time, it was Stalingrad. Because he's saying, okay, it's Stalingrad, I have to capture
the capital.
That, because it's...
Moscow was the capital back then, right? Not Stalingrad?
It may have been Stalingrad, though. I don't know. What was capital that.
Yeah.
Either, it was a major city. So, Hitler said, we're going to capture Stalingrad. And that was their demise. Even though...
walked into the wood chipper, essentially.
Yeah.
It was a meat grinder, just...
Well, I don't know if it happened in World War II and Napoleon, but they didn't have the right clothing.
That's never a good issue to
I think it happened both times where they... I think Germany thought it would go fast, so they didn't have winter clothing. Well, or France just didn't have it, or didn't take it. So they weren't dressed for... maybe they just didn't know how brutal the winters were. It just... the people that died just of hypothermia wasn't. I mean, the losses. I was reading about the losses yesterday.
We'll talk about that in part 2.
No, I want to talk about it now.
It's a little sneak preview. The Austrian wars, though, are so it's captured so in the utter opposite of the way that Waterloo is, where it's like just chaos is war and peace. It's the two extremes, the elegance and decadence of high society in Russia, and just smoke, formations, cavalry. There's a very epic shot that had to be from a helicopter where you just see spiraling forces of cavalry, and it's almost like the layers of hell are just unwinding as you pan out via helicopter. And you get a very meaningful arc point for the prince Andrei, who's on the campaign, where he thinks he gets wounded, he thinks he's dying, and in the midst of this chaos, he looks at the sky and he finds it to be the most peaceful thing he's ever experienced, because it's just the calmness amongst
chaos.
Yeah. And that is, I think, something that's trying to be communicated in part 1. How far removed societally the elite were, which, as I said, this is state sponsored, and I think it's that there are some pro-communist messaging.
Well, the communism despised
the
monarchy
and the bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie. There we go.
I think that's how you said it.
Finally got it. And the proletariat is apparently no one is no one with the bourgeoisie. Well, there's bourgeoisie, but no one's the proletariat. Everything's bad.
No.
And everyone is
No, the proletariat was supposedly what communism was about, the worker.
Yeah, but hey man, that's me. I'm the proletariat.
It was the common man. It was the common farmer. And now it never.
You look up the definitions though, and it's confusing. Maybe I'm misconstrued
it's
memory.
Bourgeoisie. How are we saying it? We're saying different.
Bourgeoisie.
God, I know people say bougie, but it's
people say
bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
Bourgeoisie. It doesn't matter. But anyway,
that sounds Russian the way you say it.
It's actually French.
It sounds Russian the way you say it.
Karl Marx.
It's too late for
me
to backtrack.
Huh?
Well, he was German, yes.
I think he wrote it in French though. Use the French term.
Pick a lane, big guy.
Yeah, really.
You're gonna be a communist and German and speak French, like.
He thought communism, the first communist regime, would be in France.
Well,
he never thought it would be in Russia.
When was the French Revolution? Was that along his lifetime?
I don't know. I wish I knew more about that French period of history, because the Reign of Terror, I think, was part of it. Something about the Bastille. They freed up the Bastille, or whatever you call it, released the Bastille, which was a prison, because there were political prisoners, but it was the downfall of the French aristocracy / monarchy.
I wish I knew more about the French too. Something that I did mention to you previously. So basically, we're doing part 1 and 2 here, but part 2 is mostly romance. It establishes the importance of and character of the female interest of both of our main 2 characters.
I'm not going to talk about her.
No.
Okay.
But just for those wanting to know, I mean, that part 2 is like exclusively about that. It's just literally the ending is you get a taste of, hey, there's going to be a battle coming up here.
Okay.
So you know that part 3 is going to be fucking badass. It's very much worth mentioning. And online, there's a huge sentiment of it seems like communist sympathizers who like will try to discredit it in any way possible. If there's movies about it or whatever, and I've seen even people say that, much like Holocaust deniers, it's like the reports aren't valid or they lack substance. But I mean, it's pro-communist sentiment, and I mean, I think whatever, if you yourself are a communist, whatever, but it is important, in my opinion, to at least mention bad things that have happened under communism.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Yes.
And I think even pro-communist, the Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward, they'll probably be like, okay, yeah, that was bad. For whatever reason, a lot of them cling to Soviet Russian, but the Holodomor, there was an estimate of 3 to 7 million people who were they were killed because of the man-made famine, and that's very well documented. I mean, you can.
Are there a lot? Wait, where are you seeing? Like, what are you talking about? All these Soviet sympathizers
online, you'd be very surprised.
Well, they may. I'm sorry. I mean, I think you'd have to be very ignorant of what that produced in order to. I mean, well, communism sounds great. Living it is completely different.
Yes.
Communism supposedly provides everything. But you have to remember the hammer and sickle symbolizes work. Hard work. That's how communism works.
Oh, that doesn't.
Everybody works.
That doesn't sound fun.
No, it doesn't. It isn't. Everything's provided. It's like you work, or you will be made to work.
Yeah, and for, I mean, maybe one does not equal the other. But I would think there would be a correlation that if you are pro-communist, you probably are pro-Palestine. I mean, they closed the borders, so you couldn't escape. So you were forced into this system, and you, if you were unlucky, you were going to be starved to death. Forced to work into starvation to death. So, I mean, that's not great. And then the purges as well.
Yeah.
Where they think...
The pogroms. They hated Jews in Soviet Union.
They think up to or over 1 million were killed. At
Jews?
Least 700,000. It doesn't say the specifics. Victims were party members, military officers, artists, peasants, and ethnic minorities. So Jews would be included in that. At least 700,000 were executed, and over 1 million were sent to the Gulag, many of whom died. So,
and that doesn't include the Ukrainian.
No, that's entirely
starvation.
separate. Yeah, that's the Holodomor is the Ukrainian famine. So, whatever. Just mentioning that. I don't think propaganda is necessarily a bad thing, but when there's American propaganda, the same people who love communism will speak out about all the atrocities that we've done over the course of time. I mean, the one big one would be the transatlantic slave trade, which was bad, but we also did. I mean, I am, I was gonna say a northerner. I am. We fought, and we won. And slavery is now over because I'm not taking all the credit, but I will take.
But I was on the right side.
I'll take most of the credit. That's just what I'm going to say. But it doesn't mean the movie is still amazing. Part 1 and 2, I gave 4.5 and 4.
Okay.
And then part 3 and part 4 both are. You're going to have to listen to see what I give that.
Okay.
You excited?
I'm waiting. I can't wait to hear what that's all about.
Patiently waiting. Thank you.